welcome into the Week 18 episode, I guess you could call it. We're going to be going through our fantasy football awards, as most people are done their seasons now. Hopefully, you're in a smart league and you're not playing in Week 18 when half the players aren't playing. But let's get right into some news before we talk about the awards. We got the Baker Mayfield will not be playing this week, and he will undergo surgery on his shoulder. Mary Kay Cabot came out with a report today saying that she thinks Baker's unhappy with the play calling in Cleveland and that he will demand a trade in the offseason. Baker Mayfield quoted that tweet and said that it was false and it was just clickbait. So we will see what happens in that situation. Obviously, Baker wants to stay put with that tweet, but there are people, obviously, she's dealing with sources that think Baker wants out. And then we're going to move on to terrible news for wide receiver Michael Gallup. He will be out now with an ACL tear. That could lead to him not signing a long-term deal this offseason with a team. He might sign a one-year kind of prove-it deal again, as ACLs are tough to recover from and have a long time frame. So that's definitely a situation to monitor for a guy that I definitely thought was in to get paid this year. And then probably the biggest story from the past week, we're going to talk about Antonio Brown real quick. Antonio Brown was officially released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this morning, which can be yesterday morning by the time you guys are watching this. But Bruce Arians came out and said pretty much that Antonio Brown was complaining at halftime he wasn't getting the targets. So that's what Bruce Arians, he was already upset with him, and then he told Antonio Brown to go in the game, and Antonio Brown said no. And that's when Bruce Arians told him to leave. Antonio Brown's side of the story was that his ankle was bothering him, and that he made that point that he didn't want to go back in because of his ankle. Bruce Arians said that never happened. So really, you got two sides of the story. We don't know which one is true, but Antonio Brown was able to jump and run off the field. So obviously his ankle wasn't that bad. I want to know what you guys think of this whole Antonio Brown situation. I want you guys to let me know using the Media app. The Media app is a virtual press conferencing app. It allows you to host your own virtual press conference. You can pick your backgrounds. You can do a bunch of different things within the app. You can then post it to any social media platform you would like. Definitely tag us. I want to hear what you guys have to think about the Antonio Brown situation. Definitely check it out. It's on the Google Play and App Store. Now let's welcome in our guests. We have Will and Jeff. How's it going, guys?
Jeff,
what's happening? What's happening?
Jeff's already on the basketball. Football,
yes, sir.
Over.
Football is dead to me now. Just kidding.
Well, let's get right into some awards here. We're going to talk about fantasy football awards now that most people's seasons are over. We're going to start off with the big award, the MVP. We're naming this LaDainian Tomlinson Trophy. From his massive season that he had where he single-handedly won some people their championships. I'm going to start off. I think a lot of people are going to agree with me on this one. I think the obvious pick has to be Jonathan Taylor. He was by far the running back one. He had, I think it was 10 games in a row with a touchdown and 100 yards, which is unheard of. He was probably your best player by far. And if you had him, you probably definitely made the playoffs. Single-handedly, him putting up 20, 25 points a week, that's definitely good enough to beat probably both running backs you're playing against. He finished number 7 overall, number 5 in PPR, and that includes quarterbacks, and that is definitely unheard of. That's up there with some of the top seasons like LaDainian Tomlinson, Christian McCaffrey, and that type of numbers. So for me, I think the obvious pick has got to be Jonathan Taylor. What are your thoughts, Jeff? You agree Jonathan Taylor, or you have another pick?
No, I agree, Jonathan Taylor. I'm thinking a close second, though. Well, I'll get to mine when it's my turn. But yeah, I'll go with Jonathan Taylor, man. He's been killing it, man. Especially the last when it mattered. I'd say during the playoffs, man. If you had him, he got you to the chip. So definitely, I would roll with him.
Yeah, and Will, let's talk about your player here who definitely turned it on come playoffs.
Oh, Najee Harris. I mean, look, was there a better play during fantasy football week when he ran that last run on Monday night for a touchdown? How many guys maybe won their championship in that moment, in that play? And everybody thought, including myself, because I had him in my roster, and that play won me a championship. I thought for sure when he broke it, he's going to go down, because that's what everybody's been told to do. And I love the fact that after the game he said, yeah, I was told to go down. I was like, nah, I'm going to score. And if you don't think that was a shout out to fantasy, like, I think he actually did that for fantasy reasons. He's like, I'm going to win a lot of people their championship right now, this play, this game. And yeah, he didn't score as many points as Jonathan Taylor, but he was a rookie, wasn't a top 20 pick, or it might have been top 12 to 20. But, you know, he wasn't – I think he was a running back that carried a lot of teams this year, and that's why he's my MVP.
Yeah, I mean, he finished as the PPR running back 3, so obviously he was still great on the season. And as you said, that last play there where he made that super long run definitely won some people some championships. So that's really what you're talking about when you talk about the MVP. I definitely think that's a good choice. Jeff, who is your pick for fantasy football MVP? You said you had someone you wanted to bring up here.
You know, with the minor hiccup, I believe it was the week before last week, I'm actually agreeing with Will. Najee Harris, man, has been just a stud all year long, putting up solid numbers. You know, he never got you the 2 to 3 touchdown games, but what he got you on receptions and what he got you as far as just yard and a touchdown when you needed it, man. You know, he kept me in a lot of games this season and got me, honestly, to the championship once. In one of my leagues, Derrick Henry went down, which if I would have had that pair all season, I would have kind of been like the I can't say there's really been no real dominant football team this year. So I was going to say like the Golden State Warriors in basketball. But, man, those two, that pairing, man, would have killed it for me. But he's just been solid. So it took Jonathan Taylor. This is the only thing. Jonathan Taylor came on stronger towards the end. But as far as, you know, just being steady all season long, that's why I kind of, for my own, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but for my own team, for all the finishes that I had, that was the one staple on all my teams was that man right there.
Yeah, definitely agree. Sometimes, you know, things like that, obviously it's going to come into effect if you had him on your team or not. If you didn't have Jonathan Taylor, he's not going to be your fantasy football MVP because he didn't win you anything. But let's move along here. We have our breakout players of the year. I'm going to start it off. I think there was an obvious pick, and I think Will made a great call on that, but we're going to start with mine. I'm going a little bit more end-of-season breakout. I'm not going to be talking about Sony Michel. I'm going to be talking about Rashaad Penny. I think he broke out not only for fantasy football players, but I think he broke out trying to save his career. Within the last 4 weeks, he had 3 games, 19.5 points and above, including last week against the Lions where he had 32.5 PPR points. You know, that's better than Najee's week. And as I said, he'd been struggling. He was a first-round pick. And this year he really did kind of break out near the end once the injuries happened. So do I think he's going to be a great fantasy football running back next year? No, but I think this year he definitely solidified himself to me as one of the breakout players of the year. And I definitely think he earned himself some money going into the offseason. Jeff, Seahawks fan, what are your thoughts on Rashaad Penny?
I'm glad he finally showed up. I've been pulling for that guy for the last couple of years. Knew that he could go ahead and become a pretty solid running back. I'm still salty on them not picking up Jonathan Taylor, though, because they drafted him the year before. But I'm hoping now he's going to continue on the upswing. I think he could be a really serviceable running back if he does not keep if he can shake the injury tag. I'm just going to him and Chris Carson, that's their issues. You know, they can be great running backs or at least really valuable running backs if they didn't get hurt so much. So hopefully he can shake the injury tag. If he does, I would like to keep him. But if he's going to be injured after the 3rd game next season, we need to move on and get somebody else.
Will, let's jump into your pick for breakout award here.
Oh, it's Deebo Samuel by far.
Yeah,
by far. And what was great about it is he broke out in different phases of the season. right? When he started getting deployed as a running back, oh my God, right? It added a few extra touches, maybe got you, I think a couple weeks, got a couple scores. It was just, to me, it was like when I'm thinking about breakout, it wasn't just who broke out, but they did it. They continued to break out, right? If it wasn't for that groin injury for a couple weeks, I mean, he might have been, honestly, I might have been thinking about him as MVP, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, I think he definitely had a great season. He emerged as the wide receiver 1 and then kind of emerged with the running back injuries as the running back 1 for that team as well. So I definitely think he's a great pick. Jeff, do you have a choice for breakout player of the year?
You know what? I do. And he's not my guy for rookie of the year, but as far as breaking out for the last 5 games of the season, nobody was thinking about this guy because the team he was on, 2, the quarterback he had thrown him the ball. But the sun god, Amon St. Ra, this dude kicked down the door. I'm leaving the rookie of the year to somebody else. But this kid, I mean, I was trying to think of a guy that's been in the league, that wasn't a rookie, but the numbers he put up fantasy-wise at the end of the year, man, I mean, what else can you call it other than a breakout? And, I think you thought I was going to say Cordell Patterson.
Nope. No, I knew that wasn't coming. Cordell Patterson's not going to be winning any awards here.
That was more breakdown as he lost a lot of people their fantasy championships. But Amon St. Ra, man, that dude, I as a rookie, to me, even though he's a rookie, it's still a breakout to me. What he showed over those last, I believe it was 6 weeks, man, was ridiculous. They found their wide receiver number 1 for the future, I believe. If he keeps up on this, this rate, showing what he can do when he gets the targets, hell, they got a star in the making in Detroit. They need one. So let's see what else they can put around him.
They definitely do, and I think he's also a great pick. But we're going to move on. We talked about breakouts. Now we're going to talk about some busts. We have named this the Todd Gurley Memorial Award. Based on his how he busted, you take him in the top, and then all of a sudden he has arthritis and can't play football anymore. But I'm going to talk about some guy who fell off. I don't feel it's because he's not talented. I feel it's because he's in the situation he's in. I feel it's because he has one of the worst head coaches in the NFL. I'm going to talk about Allen Robinson. Failed to put up over 11 PPR fantasy points at that once this season. He was on the field a lot to start the season. Obviously, he struggled with injuries as of late, but, you drafted him in the May 4th round or so. And for him to, he's currently the wide receiver 89 in standard scoring formats. And that is not good return on your 4th round draft pick. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with Allen Robinson being one of the busts of the year. But I'm going to let Will take off and talk about his bust of the year here, who I definitely agree with as well.
Saquon Barkley. I'll never draft him again. I don't care what numbers he puts up. I'll never keep him. Doesn't mean I don't like him. I think he's a good guy. I think he could be a decent running back. I think he has to get out of the Giants. But I'll never get anywhere near him again. I don't care. I will put Cordell Patterson as my starting quarterback.
Nope. Cordell Patterson's a guy who I would never go with. I have a card. Will sent me a card upstairs, and I'll definitely have it on the show next week. But I got myself a nice Cordell Patterson football card. Will feels the same way about Saquon Barkley as I feel about Cordell Patterson. We will never be touching him on our teams again.
Nope.
Who's your pick for breakout of the year, Will or Jeff?
Oh, man. Well, there's a number, and I'm glad – a number of them, but I'm glad I did not draft this guy. I was kind of skittish once Julio Jones left, and I almost didn't want to pick him just because of the reason why he stepped away, but he just was never right even from the beginning, and that's Calvin Ridley. Man, I had all kind of people trying to trade him to me at the beginning of the season, and I was like, no, I am staying away from him. But I know people that just thought this dude was going to be the number 1 wide receiver in all of football after
Mm-hmm.
Julio Jones left. And he ended up leaving, mid-season. So I feel for people that drafted him, man. I feel for him, but I also feel for the people that drafted him, because that was a top wasted pick. Wasn't due to injury. It was just due to just him not really wanting to be there and playing ball, I guess. So I don't know. That's my pick, Calvin Ridley. Mike Davis comes in very closely, who I did pick up and thought was going to do something, but I'm going to stick with Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I think those are definitely both great picks. The Falcons fell off all fantasy relevance come the end of the season there. No one was doing well, not Mike Davis, not Cordell Patterson. None of the wide receivers were doing great. Russell Gage kind of fell off too there.
Yeah.
But we're going to move on to the next award, which is the waiver wire pickup of the year. I'm very glad I don't think anyone's going to be talking about Cordell Patterson in this segment anymore after he absolutely busted the last 4 weeks of the season. But I'm going to start it off. I've gone on the record before. I talked about him. I talked about Hunter Renfrow, wide receiver 11 in PPR. You were definitely able to pick him up off your waivers. He's only had 3 games the entire season under 10 points in PPR formats. He finished last week off with a 20-point week, which definitely helped someone win their fantasy football championships with that nice touchdown there. He really didn't have too many touchdowns throughout the season. He only had 7, so not great, not amazing. But what really kept him in was the targets, especially after Waller went down. He was Derek Carr's number 1 wide receiver. He really emerged for me. If I wasn't talking about him here, he would have been my breakout player of the year. But you got him on the waiver wire. And I didn't say this before, but I named this award after Rasul Douglas, who's come on strong for the Green Bay Packers this year, that they picked up off of waivers. So I really felt like that was a good way to represent this award. So I got Hunter Renfrow as my waiver wire pickup of the year. Will, who is your waiver wire pickup of the year?
Sony Michel. And it was interesting because I think a lot of people tried to keep him on their, when he was traded to the Rams. I think a lot of us maybe thought, hey, he might be the number 1 running back to start the season. And when it didn't happen, right, you kind of and he ended up on the waiver wire and you could get him. So, I just think it was important to, if you were smart enough to be paying attention and you stashed him, the last at crunch time for your playoffs, I don't know. I can't think of another guy in my mind that wasn't just a good pickup, but delivered victories for you at the most crucial time of the season.
For sure. He's definitely a great pick, especially when you factor into how he did into the playoffs. If you were brave enough to start him with Darrell Henderson, maybe come back and maybe not come back and then going on IR, you were definitely confident with him then. But if you did start him, you definitely probably won your matchups. Jeff, who is your waiver wire pickup of the year?
Man, the biggest one was what Will just said. Sony Michel absolutely got me to a championship as well. But another one, I would have to look at another running back, was D'Onta Foreman, man. I couldn't believe what he did, during the championship part of the – basically, you made it to the championship, you picked him up. He basically helped you win a championship. And I couldn't believe he was still on the waiver wire, just happened to snatch him up. I didn't even play him, but I could have played him. It was almost like having poker where you just got a bunch of high face cards where any one of them would have helped you win the pot. And he would have been a guy that, everybody was looking at. Hilliard, hell, I even picked up Adrian Peterson at one point. This guy was supposedly washed up out of the league, and then comes in. And I don't think it was just the line. This was against a Miami defense. I think he still got a lot of juice left. So that I just threw him out there, man, because I just couldn't believe what he did for Tennessee in that running game, man, after King Henry went down.
Yeah, I definitely agree, especially last week when he had 26 carries, 132 yards, and a touchdown. That's some Derrick Henry numbers right there.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think if he had been a little more consistent before that, he probably would have been in this conversation a little more for me. But definitely, if you had him on your roster and you played him, you could definitely have that attachment to him to call him the waiver wire pickup of the year. And like I said, as long as your answer wasn't Cordell Patterson, your answer is good with me. I won't argue with it.
Yeah, I was just looking at the championship part of it, man. That's about it. And you guys took all my other guys, so
yeah, for sure. And then we got our 5th award. We have the Rookie of the Year. I really debated calling this one the Baker Mayfield Award since he had a great rookie year, and then
why would you curse anybody like that?
And then he struggled afterwards. So like I didn't actually come up with a name for it, but that was one of the things I was thinking about was calling it the Baker Mayfield Award. Hoping that these guys...
This should be the Randy Moss Award.
All right,
there you go. There you go.
Because Randy, that rookie season was amazing, and a lot of people in fantasy back then didn't draft him high in the draft. No one thought he was going to put up those numbers. So for me, if we're going to name it, we should give it to Randy.
We're gonna talk about other Vikings receivers. You call it the Justin Jefferson Award for all sake there as well, because he had an amazing year last year and definitely won some people their championships. To me, I think there's 2 obvious choices. I got one, Will's got one. Not sure who Jeff's got, but we will see. I'm gonna go with their fantasy football MVP. I'm talking about Najee Harris. I had Jonathan Taylor as my MVP, so I think Najee Harris fits in here perfectly as the RB3. And as you guys said, that last touchdown run was extremely important to people's fantasy championships. And, I don't really think you guys already talked about him a little bit. I agree with everything you said, and that's why I got him here as my Rookie of the Year. Will, you got the other guy. Let's have it. You introduce him here.
It's Jamarr Chase, especially last week. Oh, my God. Look, where they're throwing the ball, and he still did what he did last week. Simply amazing, man. And let me tell you, I think you can make an argument that Chase and Najee Harris are definitely top 5 picks next year. And I don't know if you could go wrong. Well, depends on what happens with Pittsburgh in that quarterback position. But I don't know what you could go wrong with them going 1-2 next year.
Yeah, it's definitely, I don't know if I'd be taking either of them 1-2. I think there are some guys, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, I'd probably take over them. But you definitely could end up turning out well as Jamar Chase is wide receiver 5 in PPR, wide receiver 3 in standard formats. And, that's great for a rookie as well. Both Najee Harris and Jamar Chase finishing top 5 in their respective positions as rookies is amazing. Jeff, you have anyone you want to talk about? You want to piggyback off of either of our picks here?
Both. That's why, as impressive as Amon St. Ra was during the end of the season, nobody's been more impressive than those two. In particular, Jamar Chase, man. It has been, there was a couple of weeks where he might have got you single digits, but the next week he just made up with it, just with a ridiculous game. So, and then this last week between him and DK Metcalf, but we're looking at just rookies, just guys getting over 2 touchdowns. And he was just kind of unstoppable, man.
Yeah.
So out of all the rookies, I like what Jalen Waddle did, but Najee Harris and Jamar Chase, man, definitely. There's really nobody else I can even put out there, that compares with those guys.
In that conversation, as you said, Amon Ra, he was great. Jalen Waddle was also great, but these two really set themselves apart, finishing top 5 in their respective positions. Both of them are probably in the running for Rookie of the Year. Probably end up going to Mac Jones, real NFL, just because he's a quarterback.
Right.
But, they both had amazing seasons, and definitely that 266 yards and a couple touchdowns, 3 touchdowns last week definitely helped out Jamar Chase there. We're going to move on to some coaching awards. We want to talk about the worst fantasy football coaches, coaches that really screwed you over. You never knew what to do with them. There's definitely some options there. We call this the Urban Meyer Award because Urban Meyer is absolutely terrible at coaching an NFL football team. I have 2 picks here. My first pick is going to be Matt Nagy. He ruined Allen Robinson for me. You really never know what to expect. You don't know who's starting at quarterback any given week. He's the reason I don't like Cordell Patterson, just because what he did to David Montgomery and taking Cordell Patterson, putting him in the game when it should have been David Montgomery. He really ruined some seasons for me before. So that's one of my picks, and I think the other pick, the guy the award is named after, Urban Meyer, with what he did to James Robinson there. So those are my two picks. Will, who is your pick for worst fantasy football coach of the year?
I mean, Urban Meyer and Voldemort are about the same, right? The name that cannot be said in fantasy football. I'm going to go with Joe Judge of the Giants. What? I'm so mad about Saquon Barkley because I kept him in my dynasty, and I knew I should have got rid of him. I should have got rid of him. But I was like, oh, watch, he'll put up 1,500, 1,800 yards. Yeah, no. The Giants and the Jets are just disasters. I'm going to stay away from the whole state of New York, or at least New York City, and only go with the Buffalo Bills from now on. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, go for the team that actually plays in New York, not the teams that claim to be New York and play in New Jersey. So you can already tell they're going to be imposters there. Jeff, you have a worst fantasy football coach you want to bring up here?
I do, man. But, I mean, there's nobody that can beat the Nagy or Urban Meyer. That was the worst. But just one to consider. Zach, you might agree or you might get upset. Is your guy Matt Rule?
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely was like a plane that started off flying high and then one of the engines just went out and the whole thing just crashed. So, I mean, how can you destroy that offense like that? Whether they want to put it on Brady or whoever it is, I started to think it was Matt Rule. Even when the defense just started to go ahead and fall apart, it just seemed like everybody gave up. And I think all the fingers point at Matt Rule. So
yeah, I agree. The offense kind of fell apart when Christian McCaffrey left. And once Christian McCaffrey was gone, Chuba wasn't consistent. They had the opportunity to make him consistent. Amir Abdullah, he was thrown in there near the end of the season. He did all right. And then the wide receiver position, DJ Moore was okay. He wasn't great. Definitely wasn't what he should have been in that offense, the quarterback carousel that was going on there. So definitely I agree with that pick. Next up, we're going to talk about some of the best fantasy football coaches. We got this John Madden Award named after the great coach of the Oakland Raiders who did pass away not too long ago. I'm going to start off with a guy who's been in the news recently. I'm going to talk about Bruce Arians. To me, maybe he's not really a guy you would think of for this award, but, once Leonard Fournette started off the season, you were able to ride him. You knew every week Leonard Fournette was going to get involved. So that definitely helped you out there. He found a way to get all of his receivers and tight ends involved to the best of his ability, obviously, with Tom Brady at quarterback. I think, the offense was run with Byron Leftwich there. That got everyone involved. Everyone was able to eat. And to me, I think that's definitely important. And then once Fournette went out, obviously, you were able to trust Ronald Jones. He did kind of disappoint championship week, but that was due to them falling behind to the Jets. Yeah, right. That's a whole other story. But I think, to me, Bruce Arians being super consistent, definitely knowing you knew what you were going to get out of your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, yeah, for me, it's got to be Bruce Arians. Will, who is your pick for the fantasy football coach of the year?
It's Sean McVay, because I like what he did all season, because honestly, for Cooper Kupp to put up the numbers he did, knowing, especially after Robert Woods went down, right? Mm-hmm. And OBJ's taken some time, but Kupp's production never really dropped, right? He got you points, and then he just had a good offensive game plan. Then honestly, the ability to stack the running backs the way they did, that meant if you stacked Ram players, even if you had a draft early and you lost Cam Akers, but you kept Henderson and Michel, there wasn't a week really. I mean, there was a couple weeks they struggled there, but most of the season they were consistent in giving you points. And then, to bring OBJ in. I mean, I know everybody's like, oh, it's OBJ, but it's hard to join a team in this late in the season and then start to produce the way he was producing. And y'all know I'm not a big Matthew Stafford fan. Matthew Stafford was having a couple weeks that he was the Stafford that anybody in the NFC North would tell you they knew. That being said, though, the last couple of weeks, I think McVay has done a better job of limiting bad Matthew Stafford and maximizing the team to keep putting up points.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Outside of the way they handled that Darrell Henderson situation with him coming back, being healthy, and then not playing the entire game, which screwed people out of not starting Sony Michel. I think he'd been great for fantasy football. Jeff, do you have a pick here for your fantasy football coach of the year?
I do, man. And it's not necessarily for my fantasy football team, except for one league where I had Jamar Chase. But what Zach Taylor did this year, I expected them to be dead last. But, man, that offense, whether it was T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, man, I mean, everybody scored in the key positions. And one guy's a lot of games that actually bought in on Joe Mixon. That's one guy I've been down on for a long time. But Zach Taylor seemed like he put some things together, man. And hell, even the Cincinnati Bengals defense stepped up a couple of weeks. So I'm giving that award to him.
I agree. And that transitions perfectly to my comeback player of the year. I'm going with Joe Mixon, who finished at the RB3, RB4, depending on your scoring settings, coming off a season where he only played in 6 games. He didn't score 100 points. This year, he's been incredible. As you said, people have been skittish on Joe Mixon. He's had two top 10 seasons previously, but people are still scared based off what happened last year. So for me, coming out, solidifying himself as a top 5 running back in fantasy football this year, he's got to be my breakout player of the year. Or not my breakout, my comeback player of the year. He's still 25. As you said, Zach Taylor was able to get him involved through the air, through the ground, over 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, as well as 42 receptions and 300 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. That's great numbers for your running back. He was consistent all season. He did have a couple of down games here and there, but outside of that, every week, you knew what you're going to get from Joe Mixon, and he definitely won some people their fantasy football semi and the championship weeks, because in the semis he had that big 31.5 point game, and that's a great week. Will, let's talk about your your comeback player of the year here.
I'm going to go with Austin Eckler because I thought he was able to stay healthy and he put up the points, right? So I was a little worried about having Eckler on the roster at the start of the year. I wasn't sure he could make it the whole season, but I thought he did. I thought he came through. He recovered from his injury last year, and he put up consistent points for you, especially near the end of the season. So I like him. I liked him anyway. I was just worried about the health and coming off the injury, but I look at the guy who contributed on fantasy and gave you points. Yeah, it was Eckler.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And as you said, he's pretty much healthy all year. And that related to him being a top. That was kind of his main knock, was that they didn't think he was going to be able to stay healthy, but he did. Jeff, who was your pick for comeback player of the year?
Uh-oh.
Actually, I'm not saying Cordell Patterson.
Good.
You know what? I am actually going I'm going with the guy that's probably off the radar, but for me it was Diontae Johnson. He had a lot of drops last year. A lot of people were down on him, man. A lot of people didn't pick him up earlier during the draft. He did suffer a couple of drops in a couple of games this year, but it was not as bad as it was the year before. And he actually was one of the most consistent wide receivers in fantasy. So that's who I'm looking at.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a great pick as well. As you said, he struggled with the drops last year, and he really didn't this year, despite Big Ben getting older. Yeah. He was definitely, along with Najee Harris, the consistent parts of that offense. Chase Claypool, not consistent at all, and Juju not playing for most of the season. It really allowed Diontae to get the targets. I definitely think that is a great pick as well. We have one more award we want to get to. We're talking about the draft day steal. We're going to name this the Tom Brady Award, being the 6th-round quarterback and turning out to be the greatest quarterback of all time. And that's exactly where I'm staying with this. My pick's got to be Tom Brady. He was the late round 9, early round 10 in most fantasy football drafts, and he is the quarterback 3. So getting the quarterback 3 in all of football in the 10th round. I know on my rosters, he's definitely carried me throughout the season into the playoffs. He's been super consistent. He's had a couple down weeks when he played the Saints, New England, and Indianapolis, but those are all great defenses. So there is some other guys, obviously there's one big guy that Will wanted to talk about. So I didn't want to talk about him as well. I wanted to come up with a guy who we called out on this show before, who we thought was going to be a draft steal. He was one of my draft steals before the season started. I was taking him everywhere. I took him everywhere, and he turned out exactly as I expected. And for that reason, Tom Brady's got to be my draft day steal, Will. This is the big name right here.
It's Cooper Kupp. Look, I went high on Cooper Kupp in the draft, so I had him on almost all my teams. Mm-hmm. And if you were redrafting, number 1 pick, number 2 pick, maybe if you did a redraft today, based on what we know, he would definitely be top 3, I would think. So, if you got him out of the first round, it was a steal based on how the season ended.
Yeah, and he was going around that Allen Robinson reign in the 4th and 5th round. So
Allen Robinson, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what I said. Like, to me, there was 2 options. For me, it was Cooper Kupp or Tom Brady. There's definitely a lot of other guys that could be talked about. Jeff, is there anyone you want to bring up with your draft day steal pick?
Oh my gosh, it's a tough one, man. I'm trying to think.
There's a lot of guys, because you got guys like Leonard Fournette, Deebo Samuel, a lot of late round guys that definitely turned out to be tops.
And that's what I'm trying to think. Who is the best guy? Mm-hmm. And the guy that that kept me in a couple of games in one of my leagues that I had was actually Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts, yeah.
I got him as like a quarterback in the 12th round at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to get a starting quarterback that low that actually outproduced guys like Lamar Jackson that went very high. I wouldn't say he was Tom Brady-esque, but he did lead to a lot of wins. He was a very serviceable quarterback. So as far as where I drafted him, that's who I'm looking at as my draft day steal.
Yeah, that's definitely a good pick. And like I said, there's a ton of other options for this award. It wasn't just, shoe in. You got Leonard Fournette, James Conner. You got guys like that. Damian Harris was even a draft day steal as he finished top 15. There's definitely a ton of options there. But I want to thank you guys for joining. Next week, I'm going to be posting up all my story. We're going to be letting you guys decide your fantasy football awards. I'm going to make sure I'm going to make a post about it. We're going to post it up on the story. I'm going to let you guys pick from 4 options. Some of our options are going to be ours, and then we're going to talk about your picks on the show next week, as well as maybe talking a little bit of dynasty football. But yeah, that's the plan for next week. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you check out my page on Instagram, which is Pro Football Craze. That's where we're going to be running the polls. You can check out the media on Instagram as well, which is at Media MPC. But yeah, thank you guys for joining again. I want to thank everyone for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and make sure you do tune in next week, because we're going to be breaking down your picks for each position, telling you whether we agree, whether we disagree. And, if I see Cordell Patterson winning any awards here, I'm going to be very upset. So let's make sure we do not let that happen.
I'm voting for Cordell just because of that.
Hilarious.
Yeah, watch. Cordell Patterson's going to win like 5 awards.
What's going to be worse? Cordell Patterson's going to be the new starting running back for the Carolina Panthers.
I mean, I hope not. I'll have to pass on cheering for the Panthers if that does happen. I'll just take a year and just become a fantasy football analyst. I'm not going to be a fan of any teams. If Cordell Patterson ends up being the starting running back for the Panthers, I'd be very upset.
As would I, Zach. I'd be upset for you, man.
Yeah. I think a lot of fantasy owners would be upset because that means something happened.
Exactly.
For sure, yeah.
To happen.
Yeah. Like I said, thanks for joining, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you tune in next week.
All right. Thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Zach.